which has helped. Have a look.
Is that a test tube?
Yep, every time I do a good deed for someone, I get them to breathe into a test tube. That way, I can collect everyone's breaths of joy.
Sounds fascinating. Are you gonna use them?
I believe these breaths of joy will serve as valuable raw materials for alchemical transmutation. With any luck, I'll be able to produce something truly miraculous.
Chocolates or flowers or something to show that I care about you.
Darn, now
Instead,
Paimon's hungry.
do things.
Actually,
For me.
I meant some. I can't say for sure until I have more test results to confirm my hypothesis, though.
You get things said.
Anyway, I'm still missing.
Oh, is that all you need help with? Patsy, just take Paimon to a sweet madame. Then you'll get your last breath of joy. Hey, come on!
This is weird.
No, joy isn't measured in those terms. Well, let me put it this way. Have you ever planted a fruit in the same way that those tender, sweet fruits are the For example, in my case, I would say that to experience a statistically significant amount of joy, similarly, in order to collect a significant amount of joy from other people.
Oh, long story short, you want us to help you find people for... Oh, that's pretty tough given that it's...
Oh, I figured since you're such experienced travelers, yes, you're right.
Well, if he's it, then Paimon... But, if things don't work out, can Paimon still get that sweet madame? Oh, come on, traveler, this is a festival!
Excuse me, Sucrose? Could I borrow you for a second?
Oh, sure.
Is he calling the Washington
Be right back.
Wapo? Am I hearing that right? Or is this just because I'm watching it on
Wait,
speed?
is that who Paimon thinks it is?
That's so funny. Schmidt would do that. Schmidt would love that. The Wapo?
Let's go say
And then
hi!
the New Tie? Like the New York Times? I forgot the name. Literally every other, newspaper that exists in the entire world. So that's on me. In New Zealand, we have...
College! Hey!
We can't really show stuff.
Oh, hey you guys. What are the chances?
If you think
You
of
were
any...
staring into space just now.
I was just looking at a Mondstadt children's book in the souvenir shop over there. While I was flipping through it, a piece of paper fell out. If you can do these things, you may light the lantern of utmost joy and receive a supreme blessing.
So what to do with a holiday that
What
assumes
does
romantic
these things refer to?
Find a flower that is not of this world.
Making time for
Find a
self-love,
guide who will never get lost.
soaking in a hot bath,
Find
curling up in
one
bed
who would
with
never
three
lie.
stuffed animals,
Find
Fingal,
a
Marcia, and
legend
Sylvia.
that
The last
never
two
ends.
after
So, 4
named
things
after
in total.
trailblazing
Here,
trans
have a
actors
look.
Marcia P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera.
Now, I don't know what he's
I asked a lady who owns the store about it, but she said that she didn't know anything about any paper slips.
This is just a 37-year-old woman living her life, just self-care and
Hi there.
having a bar.
Sorry to butt in,
having
but
time for herself to
what's-
look after
oh,
herself and have a good day.
it was called...
I don't know.
That
what you
is
could
strange.
possibly say
I've read that book,
turn
and it
this
sounds
into-
like that note you found has no
Let's see
relation
what he
to the
thinks
story
it's
at
about.
all.
Because there's something. He's made a whole 12-minute video about it.
Do you know her?
Let Paimon do the honors. Hello, this is Sucrose, an alchemist with the Knights of Favonius.
Because she
And
named
Sucrose,
the
meet
stuffed
Kale.
animals
She's a
after
trainee
people
forest
that she
ranger
cared
from
about.
Sumeru's immediate forest.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm sorry that you don't care and aren't interested. I'm glad to know the names of her stuffed animals. All of my stuffed animals have names. Granted, most
This
of them
is getting awkward fast.
This is
You're both
Swanky.
so shy.
This is Generit. We also call him
So,
the rat.
Sucrose, what
This is Peanut.
without having done any research, I couldn't comment definitively.
This is Big Bit.
But if you want my subjective opinion, I don't think that it's a nasty prank or anything.
Way more. You'll have names, and I
The
love
only people who read children's books are those with a childlike wonder and imagination. Or children, of course. I'm sure that whoever put this prophecy there would understand that. Would they really do this just to spread lies and ruin someone's innocence? I can't imagine anyone being so cruel.
That's a great take.
I love
in
it.
touch with your inner child.
Exactly.
That
Who
sounds
would
like
want to
a
hurt a
huge
child's
I'm
feelings?
sorry
Okay,
to live a sad
so,
and boring life in the boundaries
if
of
I
what
had to
you
guess,
as an adult is.
maybe a
But
fairy
I,
that can make
as
people's
one,
wishes come
like
true or
having
something?
fun
I haven't
and
read many
enjoying
fairy
myself.
tales, so this is
Fuck you.
pure speculation, with no other information on hand or prior research to compare against.
Polka dot for
I'm afraid it might
Okay.
not even be worth considering.
Wow. Her guesswork is really good,
It
though.
was a shock.
I want to pick her brain some more.
So,
But
well,
will
maybe
she find it annoying if I keep asking her questions? We've only just met after all. What's
the
the best
caption,
time
I'll
to say this when I'm hearing it for the first time?
Sleep easy anyway with the somewhat cruel satisfaction we all sometimes experience after seeing someone else's utterly
If
pathetic
possible,
and depressing
then
life and feeling
what would
deep
you wish for,
relief
Kale?
that it's not our own.
That's me at you. I don't want to live my life just hating everyone who enjoys
Can't
their
base
life.
it on that.
That's very kind of you.
You're so uptight that you hate everything.
I know that
You
voice.
hate fun,
It's
you hate creativity, you put yourself in a box, and you don't like anyone who lives outside of it, and you don't want to break any of these rules. That sounds awful.
You made good time, huh?
don't envy you.
You're way earlier than I expected. I spotted your green hair way off in the distance. Good thing my eyes are sharp, or I'd have...
Amber, have you been doing well? Did you finish all the pita pockets I brought you last time?
You bet. They're getting yummier each time you make them.
Wait, am I kind of... Have you been to Mondstadt before?
Hi.
Never be afraid of falling.
A long time ago, I had a lot of... So ever since my Alizar got better, I've been looking out for an opportunity to come back to Mondstadt and tell them all the news that I've been heard.
And I see that picture, I can't help but think
Thanks.
to myself,
If it's okay with everyone, why don't I take Kale for a walk around town? I'd like to show her some of the places she didn't get to see last time.
Of course. Fine by
You
me.
want to be happy with that life, and that's fine. If you
Sure, go right ahead.
and name them and be in touch with your inner child, and you
I,
don't spend Valentine's Day,
Hi.
and you want
Sorry, Amber. I agreed to meet my traveling companions by the city gate in a few minutes, so...
good.
Oh, that's all right. In that case, you guys go rest up, and I'll go see Master...
Oh,
You don't envy her.
Traveler Sucrose, could you look after Kale for now? I'll come get her later and take her out. There's still a whole bunch of people I need to introduce her to.
sure. No problem.
You're not her. You're
Awesome.
yourself.
See you later then.
You won't like that's just what people are. Like why do you take like what you enjoy? Like, what you think is good, and then put it out to everyone else like everyone else must think like me, must live like
I'm
me.
sorry. I'm just
Because
feeling
I
a
would
little
be
shy
sad if I
today.
had the lives of
Amber
these
wants
other
to introduce
don't
me to
have
more
to
of her
live
friends. I've only met
They made
Sucrose
their
so
choices.
far.
You made your
I wish I
choices.
had a little more self-confidence.
Well, what did
It's nearly time.
Acknowledged on February 14th have to include romance and sex. Roughly 1% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual Americans are asexual.
I do believe that is wrong. 1% of lesbian, gay, and bisexual people being asexual doesn't make a ton of sense because you can't be bisexual and asexual. I think they just meant bi. Like,
Why is
they
this
shouldn't have
humble
said
window
bisexual.
such a
It was
great
meant to be
view?
bi-romantic.
I mean, it's understandable.
But I suppose
It must have been a
someone
long
said
time
bi
since you last came to
belonged to
Mondstadt.
bisexual when
Because it is the true great Vayu
I guess you could be
Viastra.
bisexual and asexual if you're like demisexual. But
Oh, come on.
bisexual,
Don't tell me you
demisexual,
don't get it.
asexual,
View,
asexual,
Vayu,
spectrum.
and also
I guess it
Mahamatra.
would just be easier to say bi.
Kanari,
Whew, am I glad to see you.
More inclusive. Bi is like more of a thing that includes everyone under bi, you know? Bisexual, well,
And who's this young...
Master, this is Sucrose, an alchemist with the Knights of Favonius. Sucrose, this is my teacher Tainari. He's a highly respected forest watcher in Sumeru, and he's also
No.
a very famous botanist.
No.
Kale's exaggerating. I'm Tainari. Pleased to meet you.
So you have a teacher as well?
Yep, he's extremely knowledgeable too. And this is General Mahamatra Sino of the Sumeru Academia. He's really famous in Sumeru as well.
Greetings. Though if I might say so, we're purely here for personal reasons. You needn't be unduly concerned with our official positions. And Kale, there's no need to use my full title. Sino is fine. Or sir, if you absolutely must.
Indeed. We're not here in an official capacity. Just to keep Kale company on her vacation.
keep me company? But it was you two that insisted on...
Kale is very important to us. We felt obliged to ensure her safety on the long...
But I've been here on my own loads of times before.
You cannot be something and also the negation of that thing
What
at the
about your
same
work,
time.
though?
Yeah, see,
What if something bad happens while the General Mahamantra's away?
Yeah, it was
There should be no issues. I have left my duties in the hands of my subordinates, and two especially rely upon...
Hey!
Sucrose,
Wait!
what were you saying about you having a teacher as well?
I was just going to mention that I think we're in a somewhat similar situation. I'm an assistant to Mr. Albedo,
Good
Mondstein's
girl.
genius alchemist.
Oh, please, Sucrose. Genius is an unnecessary epithet. It will serve only to leave an exaggerated impression of me in the minds of our guests.
Mr. Albedo, but it is an objective truth.
Hey, Albedo's here too! Great! The more the merrier!
So tell me, Sucrose, since your specialty is bioalchemy, what do you know about the antitoxic properties of the calla lily?
Wait! Can we hold off on the nerdy topic for now? No one doesn't want to be left out!
Or bisexual, or pansexual,
As it happens,
or aromantic.
I've studied the calla lily in quite some detail before, with it being a species native to Mondstadt. I wrote a whole report on my findings. If you're interested, Mr. Tainari, sir, I can go get it for you.
We're supposed to be here on vacation, and you're already thinking about how to improve your herbal medicines? Also, I thought we'd agreed to take on new identities for this trip.
What new identity?
Mine was Adventurer Sino, skilled desert explorer. Tainari's was technological consultant to the treasure hoarders. And Kale's was traveling musician.
I want to eat.
Very much
I
so.
mean, as any band, I have nothing.
I do wish some of
You
the
can
less
take those,
cautious
I don't like
adventurers
those.
in the Avidya forest would consider coming to Mondstadt instead. What Philanimo mushrooms lack in texture, they make up for in not causing vomiting or diarrhea.
Are you contemplating using some compounds from the calla lily as active ingredients in a targeted antidote?
Yes, I gathered a few on the way here, and my initial research suggests to me that it could be worth a try.
Okay, I got it, but as much as I don't wish to be a wet blanket, it takes a huge amount of experimental data to conclusively prove how different drugs interact. Estimate adding the time for procurement and delivery of essential materials, and I'm not sure if we could complete development before you need to return.
If these happen, stop Slind and call your doctor. Before taking Slind, tell your doctor if you may be pregnant or have had blood clots, stroke, heart attack, high
Then
potassium in
please,
your blood,
allow me
diabetes,
to
or
help.
depression, which can
Mr.
lead to serious
Albedo.
side effects.
Apologies for my
Talk to your
tardy
doctor
entrance
about
in the
Slind
present
today.
discussion. I understand you're looking to make an antidote for poisonous fungi, correct? If you happen to have some samples with you, or relevant documentation on hand, perhaps you might give me the
We can
chance to
describe
review them
everyone.
later. But
You just don't like
before
the opposite.
that, I invite the
You just
three of you
refuse to
to
believe
look at
that they're real
this.
opposites. All of these sexualities, all of these terms, they all have definitions. You just don't get it, and you don't like it. So you're like, they don't have an explanation. They don't have a definite... Yes, they do. You just refuse to listen. And you refuse to acknowledge it and interpret it and understand it. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's not real. Doesn't mean it's not valid. Doesn't mean it doesn't make sense.
Rather,
You just, like,
I should
refuse to, like,
apologize for
think
interrupting
about
a
it.
serious discussion between trained professionals, especially after they've traveled so far to be here, when I myself am neither an adventurer, nor a technological consultant, nor a musician. Nevertheless, I would encourage you to have a knowledgeable local arrange your detailed itinerary while you're in Mondstadt. Take a look. And should you find anything here to be objectionable, it can easily be adjusted. This is too kind of you. These arrangements are quite excellent.
Another common identity is demisexuality, or
Feels like tagging along for
someone
the food
only
and
experiences
board.
sexual attraction after forming a close emotional or romantic bond with another person. There are many other identities on the ACE spectrum, but what they all have in common is the lack, to varying extents, of sexual attraction. Aromanticism, on the other hand, is an orientation characterized by a lack of romantic attraction. Asexuality is a sexual orientation. Aromanticism is a romantic
Very comprehensive. The adventurer, technological consultant, and musician all approve.
Just one thing.
We'd like the chance to cook as well. Why don't we change the group dinner to a camping and cooking trip?
I'll help pitch the tents.
I can help too.
Asexuality,
And Paimon will take him to Good Hunter to order some starters. Mondstadt's cold-cut platter is not to be missed.
Great. Then it's decided. Sucrose and I will bring the three of you to your inn for a quick rest. You two, let's meet by the lake this evening.
Is considered an umbrella term that encompasses all the identities that fall on the aromantic spectrum. Now, there's a lot going on here. Actually, let me amend that. There is nothing going on. This is a whole lot of nothing, which is trying to sound like something. It's a bunch of narcissistic, fart-sniffing mumbo-jumbo dressed up to sound complex and nuanced, when in fact all the complexities and nuances are just various degrees of self-comprehension.
You just described your own video. You just perfectly described your own video. You realize that this is a 13-minute video about asexuality, which is something that literally doesn't impact you or anyone else, and you made a 13-minute video being like, they're not even saying anything. Then why are you talking about it? If it's not interesting and they're not saying anything, why do you have an opinion? If it's nothing and it doesn't matter and they're saying a bunch of words that mean nothing, why do you care? Why are you here? Why are you talking about it? It clearly means something. It really does something. And I know I just said that that's what described your video, and I'm talking about it, I'm talking about you, but I'm talking about you because you're talking about that, and I think you look silly. And I think it's just fun to laugh at you a little bit. It's just ridiculous. It's just so silly. Like, you are adding nothing to this. You're just saying shit. For no goddamn reason. You just hate stuff. No reason. No reason. Shut up. Shut up. It doesn't fucking matter.
Hey, Sarah, can we have a cold-cut platter to go?
Let people live.
Sure.
You don't want to be asexual?
Do
then
we,
don't, right? Like, you're not. So
want
fuck off.
anything
There's
else?
actually no meaningful distinction between sexual attraction and romantic attraction.
Paimon will give you the sweet flower from that sweet madame as a
If they
wind
were
bloom.
romantically attracted to you, but not sexually attracted, they will have given you no useful information about their feelings towards you.
Except for the fact that they told you they're romantically
If that
attracted
was
to
a
you and not
wind
sexually
bloom
attracted
treat,
to you.
then
That
Paimon...
is telling you their feelings. There's a difference between platonic attraction and romantic attraction and other things. Like, the way I love my partner is different to the way I love my friend. Even when you take, like, sex out of it, you know? Like, I've had sex with friends or, like, strangers or whatever, and I don't feel about them the way I feel about someone I am in a romantic relationship with. There is a difference between romantic attraction, sexual attraction, platonic attraction, etc. Those are different things. So by telling someone I'm romantically attracted to you, not sexually attracted to you, that does make sense. That is your feelings, and that is valid.
All right.
It's like
Looks
being
like
in a
we're all
relationship
here.
where you don't
Not
have
at
sex.
all.
That is different.
We just
from being
came
in a
early to
friendship.
set
That is
everything
not
up.
the same
Kali
thing.
put
Like,
up the tent
you should
so
be friends
quickly,
with your partner,
but still
and
managed to
the person
tie
you're
very
romantically
sturdy
attracted
knots.
to also
I
be, like,
didn't do
friends
much
with and
apart
have
from
friendship
passing
with,
materials
obviously,
around.
but you are not going to be
Thanks.
romantically
It's all
attracted
thanks to Master and Sino.
There
They
is
taught
a
me
difference.
everything I know.
What can I say?
Not just
For a
sex.
skilled adventurer, this is just another day on the job.
Are you quite finished? Or were you going to sing each other's praises till the moon rises?
Well, that is simply called being a person.
It's not feeling sexual attraction, especially after forming an emotional bond. It's not feeling any sexual attraction or
That
desire at
sunshine
all
sprat was really
until
very good.
developing
I didn't
an
watch you
emotional
cook it,
bond. They're not
but
going to see
I believe that the
someone
prominent
out in public
umami
on the
flavor of the
street be
dish
like,
owes
"Ooh,
itself to more
they're
than the fish
hot. I'm
alone.
going to pursue them."
That's
not a
correct.
thing that they have. That's
Any
not a
further
thing that they
deductions?
do. They
Let
don't
me
start on the
think.
baseline of being
The
sexually
aroma was
attracted.
quite
I
uniform.
do believe that,
Unlike
yeah,
that of a
obviously
spice
when you
blend,
get to know someone, the
it
more
was
attractive they
also
are.
unfamiliar
That is
to
not
me.
necessarily always the
So
case.
I would
There are a lot
venture
of
that it was a
people who
Mondstadt
do not feel that way.
specialty. As
There
far
are a
as
lot of
edible
people
Mondstadt
who
plant species are
don't need to know
concerned,
someone in order to be sexually
calla
attracted
lilies
to
are
them. They don't
usually
need to know
used
anything
in
about them in order to be
soups.
sexually attracted to
Small
them.
lamp
And
grass?
knowing
That's
them
right.
well and aiding them
I've
in
long
their
heard that
desire
Sumeru's
for
fish with cream sauce is noted for its gentle texture, which brings out the tenderness of the fish. Here in Mondstadt, we're not quite as varied in the use of spices as in Sumeru, but the
Some
principle
people
of
just
bringing
like
certain
having a
distinct
label or a
flavors
way
to
to
the
identify
forefront through
themselves, right?
combinations
You
of
know, we do
natural
live in a
ingredients
place where, like,
is
you see on TV where
very
someone's
much
like,
the same.
that
I liked it a
person's
lot.
hot. I'm gonna
I'm
pursue
curious
them.
as to the
And
exact
that's, like,
ratio of
broadcast as, like, this
ingredients.
normal thing.
I'll write a copy of the recipe for you.
Would anyone like to try the nutrient-dense meal I made?
I'll have
Some
some.
people don't have that.
What
They
about
don't
you,
use
Kali?
people like that. They
It
find
doesn't
really
look like you-
hard to
no.
decide if someone's
I
attractive
just
if
don't
they
eat a lot
know
normally.
them.
So it's helpful for them to have a label because it helps them understand that, you know, that is a thing that people do. That is a normal thing that people
sorry.
do. Some people benefit from
Tainari.
having a label, some people don't.
While we were on the road,
Does not
we
matter.
spotted some...
Which day was this?
Don't use any labels
Just after
at all.
passing
I
through
started
Stonegate.
using queer a few years back, but like I didn't.
Are you
for a
sure
really
your
long
eyes
time.
were
I
working that
didn't
day?
use any
Or
label
maybe
at
your
all.
head was
Just
blocked. Paimon
myself.
always flies.
You know,
There's
I
no
only
way
use
he'd
queer
ever
because
walk.
it's like
Is
the
that
least
right?
labely label of them all. You know?
I thought
It's
that
kind
you'd
of
made me
encompasses
snacked on
like,
too many
I am
local
in here
ground
somewhere.
nuts.
And like, because labels don't work for me. They don't fit for me. They don't make me feel comfortable. They make me feel like I'm
No.
boxed in.
Not
and
funny.
I'm putting myself into a box.
Ground,
And I
you
don't
know,
personally like
as in
that.
ground
but I know that a lot
up,
of people
but
find
also
great
the
comfort in that
ground.
because they spent a lot of time
Ground
doing it
nuts
normal,
make you fall to the
and finding a
ground.
label and a word that describes them helps them feel connected to other people and understand and realize that they
Think
are
of this
not
as
alone.
part of a
This is
process
normal
of
thing,
getting
and
to
this
know
is part of the
Sino.
experience, and that there are
On the
other
bright
people like them
side,
as well.
these jokes
And I
show that
respect
he
that,
thinks
and
of
I
you as his
understand that,
friends.
and it really doesn't matter
Still,
if other
we
people
could
want to call
test the
themselves
hypothesis.
asexual or demisexual
What
or whatever.
hypothesis?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't
That
impact
plant
you. Get
species
over it.
indigenous to Mondstadt may have an effect on the motor functions of flying life forms.
Hey! Paimon's not your test subject! Anyway,
It's
by
so
your
funny
logic,
being,
wouldn't that
like,
mean
a
that
heavy,
eating,
strong
say,
Christian
Saitan
calling
peaches,
being
that would
queer
make
as
us
a whole?
sick Paimon peaches
Considering
no time
that
or
being queer is
something?
not like an organized thing, it's literally just people saying who they're attracted to and how that attraction works. There are so many different
I think
flavors.
the Traveler and Paimon's conversations are more entertaining than Sino's jokes.
Cover the
I see.
entire political spectrum. Gender
You
spectrum,
must have been keeping...
You seem much
culture,
cheerier now that you're here
religion,
at
etc.
Mondstadt, Sino.
We are all
Actually,
That's because I'm Sino the
every
Adventurer.
different area. You're
It's
holding
not?
us a cult.
In fairness, you only
believe
saw him in
that
his work
you are
mode while you were in
the only one
Sumeru.
who is right in your culture.
He's actually like this most of the
And
time when he's in a
follow
good
that.
mood.
You
Yep,
wanna
it's
tell me
true.
what's
Sometimes
not
when he's
normal
eating,
to me?
he'll grumble
Because there
about
are
how
a
the
lot of
bowl
queer
is
people
too
who are
shallow for the amount of
conservative.
food
There are
it
a lot of queer
contains
people
and
who are
other
Christian.
random
There's a
stuff
lot
like
of
that.
people who are, like,
I understand.
Christians. There's even
Then allow me to
homophobic
reintroduce myself.
They exist. I've made lots of videos.
Yeah,
about
so
them.
that's another thing
But
he
you wanna
does.
call all of us a cult?
He'll
Well,
keep
you're
repeating
sitting there being
something he
like,
thinks.
So we
I am
have
correct,
two different
everyone
mental
has to believe
states?
me in my church.
Almost like
People with this
different
very
phases of...
specific
I think in your case,
Dude, look
the
at
two
us,
states we would end up with would be
please.
highly
Oh my
conscientious
God, they
sucrose
just don't
and
get works in this way, do they?
stupefied
They have no idea what they're
sucrose.
saying. They never know
Oh,
what they're saying.
by the way,
They genuinely
was there
are so
any
clueless
reason in particular that
all
you
the time.
chose Mondstadt?
It's so
Well,
frustrating.
Lisa once told me that the Windbloom Festival is one of Mondstadt's biggest events of the year. I wanted to take this opportunity to give everyone a Windbloom as a token of my heartfelt gratitude for everything they've done to look after me.
Queer people
Plus, it
in
was
the
a good
United
chance for
States
Kale to
are
get out
the
and meet some new
least
people.
oppressed people to have
Kale
ever
lily.
walked the entire
Kale's
planet.
Windbloom.
Dude,
Maybe she should
gay
call it a
people
Kale
still
lily.
fucking kisses.
It sounds very
What are you-
Mondstadt.
What are you fucking talking about?
There's also
People want to
cauliflower,
abuse
which would
people.
technically make more sense.
People
But
want to
somehow
send
it doesn't sound as nice.
like conversion therapy. Queer people are killed for being queer. So many
Moving swiftly
queer
on.
youth are kicked out of
Just
home.
completely
They're
ignored the joke and
homeless.
carried on the
They're
conversation.
being bullied. They're being hate crimes.
Sumeru's
They're
been through
killing
some major
themselves.
changes
There are
recently,
so many
and things at
queer
work have only
people
just
who are
started to
so
calm down.
negatively
I don't get many
impacted
opportunities to take a vacation,
because we are
and this was a chance to join
What
Kale on her trip
do
while
you
also learning a few things about
You
Mondstadt's
have
flora and
no-
fauna
you
that
never
I'll be able to pass on to my peers and
You're a
students on my
cis-het
return.
white
Two birds
Christian
with one
man
stone.
living in the US.
How about
and
you,
you think
Sino?
1 second
I
that
came
other
to
people
ensure Kale's
want
safety.
any form of
That's just
representation
an excuse.
that you are
Plain and
oppressed.
simple.
Also,
You have
there's the
no
matter of a genius.
Aha! So you did have an ulterior motive.
Have you all played Genius Invocation TCG before? And that is why I am proud to call you my friend. When I first began contemplating getting a new card back, I asked around before eventually deciding to ask the legendary Mr. Kaltz for guidance. A friend of mine, Sawada, whom I played cards with on occasion, had been to Inazuma for the Irodori Festival. He told me that Kaltz was a Mondstadter, so You mean, he's a friend of yours?
I see. So,
No, that is inaccurate. I came here principally...
You most certainly did not. Kale's been here on the quiet numerous times, and this is the first time you felt the need to join.
Not only me, same applies to you too, doesn't it?
If my writer friend were here now, I'm sure he would describe this curious coincidence as having the makings of a good story. It's always a pleasure to meet a fan.
Ooh, here he comes.
Wait, you mean you're Mr. Calx?
Having my new friends address me by my pen name feels somewhat unusual. Please, just call me Albedo.
Huh. So you're Calx. Sino's been talking about you non-stop recently.
You didn't have to say it.
I don't usually take private commissions, but I believe that we are friends now, all of us. Our conversations have been deep and interesting. And Sino, your passion for this game is indeed one of a kind. I can see it in your eyes.
Obviously.
And given that you've come all this way from Sumeru to see me, I'd be quite honored to take this commission.
Wow, your teacher's so nice. I feel the same about yours. Well, they definitely have different personalities, but they're similar when it comes to their character.
So, how much should I budget?
Surely timeless masterpieces.
Any artwork fit to appear on the reverse of my card decks is by definition a timeless masterpiece.
Don't mind him. These TCG nut jobs are all like...
I see. So...
my jokes?
I do.
Really?
Yeah, well, the joke's ability to induce laughter is a separate matter.
If I might interrupt, does anyone else smell something strange?
My nutritional meal!
Will it be okay? Should we go over and take a...
Wanting to not be in a romantic or sexual relationship. A lot of asexual people have partners. They have, like, best friends. There's a lot of, like, queer...
I'd be grateful if you could check on Sucrose.
People will, like, have families and raise kids with their friends. They're just not in a relationship.
Albedo and Sucrose were delightful.
The way that you think your relationship is valid. A lot of asexual people have
The
really,
cooking
really
pot
good,
is...
really healthy relationships with people. They're just not romantic or sexual relationships. They're not selfish
Only the base is
and
burned.
lonely. Like,
We can still use the cooking pot.
Good thing Kainari's nose is so sharp. Has he been in this kind of situation a lot?
I know, it's just... yes, Kale seems a little... depressed. I noticed she was in a low mood. Remember that note she received? I was just thinking. I want to try some... Exactly. Maybe she'll be willing to breathe into my test tube. As much as I'd like to make progress in my research, I'd prefer to see her smile.
Alright,
You will?
Do what they want. Fucking, oh
Then
my
tell
god,
me.
dude.
Alright, let's meet at the alchemy crafting bench in the city.
Cover up a character flaw, which
We're
is
back.
narcissism.
I don't understand that conclusion at
Oh,
all.
what a shame. You just missed a joke about windmills.
Stop.
How? Do you know what
Please.
narcissism
That
is?
bad, huh?
Do you know what you're talking about?
Didn't you say you want to see the Dragon of the East at some point?
Tomorrow morning.
Explain.
And you?
Elaborate.
What are your
Expand.
plans?
I'll go into the mountains to have a stroll and collect a few plants to sample.
Perhaps I could join you? I'll be looking for inspiration for the...
Found you!
No sexual attraction, no desire.
I knew I was onto something as soon as I saw the fire.
Wow, you have really sharp eyes.
That's an outrider for you.
Uh-oh. Did we break the fun?
Actually, you didn't. Strictly speaking, you should have reported your plans first. But since two of our very own alchemists are here, I'm happy to look the other way. Yes, introductions. I'm Amber, and this is the Reconnaissance Company Captain Eula, a good friend of mine.
Good evening. You are friends of Kale, yes?
Oh, Amber and Eula. The pleasure is ours.
Oh, really? Oh, you asked that last time, too.
I'd say... we hear the latest news about you every time you write to Kale.
Glad to know we've made a good impression so far. Anyway, we're just here to collect Kale, so don't let it... Come on, Kale. We're gonna take you to check out... Okay, great.
Still as high and... Yes, we've met. She's Kale's most important friend. And for that, we're...
That's Amber for you. Her outgoing personality means she can make friends with...
It's getting late, and we still have a lot lined up tomorrow.
All right, I'll start packing.
but it's not the center of my person.
You're gonna get the tone deaf guard to check out that note, aren't you? Guess not knowing him, you should be hitting this. We can go corner him and make him answer.
People's personalities. Like, again, it doesn't really matter. If people find comfort in that and they find it helpful and accepting themselves, then, like, let people fucking do that. It doesn't matter. And, like, the reason people, like, asexual people are, like, proud of it and talking about it is exactly because people like you like to come in and validate them and say that there's something wrong with them and be like, there's something wrong with you, you shouldn't be proud of this, it's a problem. That's why people talk about it. That's why people say they're proud of it, because a lot of people who are asexual feel ashamed of it, feel like there's something wrong with them, and they try to, you know, push through that and do things that they're not comfortable with and that they don't want to do because they feel as though they have to. And so more people talking about it and being like, hey, asexuality is a thing.
Oh, it's been
hey,
a while.
It's okay, you don't have to experience that. You don't have to do that. It alleviates
drinking it. Put your drink down and get your game face on.
And it makes
We've
people
got
realize that, you know, they can be in romantic relationships without having sex. They can have relationships with other people who experience
Aren't
that,
you forgetting
like
something?
Crave
It's the Windbloom Festival right now.
relationships that they do.
Well,
And that's why you talk about
if you want to tell us the answer,
It sounds to me like you want a hint or two. The person who wrote this prophecy is very powerful. If you manage to solve the riddle. Also, I happen to know where this lantern is. Once you've found the 4 things, I'll even write the location down for you.
Smallest things and make entire videos about how damaging they are when, like, they literally are nothing.
Paimon sees me as nothing more. There are actually a great many things that we bards are required to do. It just happens that enjoying life is the most important one. Once this is over, would you like to join me for a drink? You know, a favor for a favor.
And Matt Walsh is in here like, bad, cult. Like, no one did anything.
Or, given the way that you're staring at me, perhaps you'd like to get me that drink now? I, of course, would be most amenable to that. But I believe you have... Don't worry, there'll be plenty of time during the festival.
I think I've said enough. All sexualities are valid. It doesn't matter. You can change your mind. You can, like... Sexuality is fluid, gender is fluid, life is fluid. We don't know everything. We don't know who we're going to be or what we're going to be or how life goes. You just have to kind of do what makes you happy and what feels good and then figure it out as you go along. That's all life.
A flower that is not of this world.
No one knows what the fuck this is.
Sucrose! We've got some good news
May
and
as
some
well
bad
enjoy
news.
the ride, you know? Hey, massive thank you to my sprout above
Really?
whose names are up on the
Oh, all
screen
right
now.
then. The wind said that the prophecy is real and that your ideas are really...
That doesn't sound like bad news.
Josh, Maddie, Robbie,
Paimon
Isabel,
into
Kai,
that news.
Jessica, Eldo, Ida, Quia Corey, Mick McKenna, Anna, Raven, Danielle, Elliot, Evie,
Blame Simon.
and
If it's
JD.
not funny, then it's his fault.
I love and appreciate you all so much.
It's fine.
Thank you so much for
Now,
joining.
back to the other... I was thinking about the flower that is not of this world. So, the initial question is, can the flower's origins be traced back to a natural organism? But then, supposing we identify...
Whoa, slow down.
Okay, I did have one other line of thought as well. What about a flower? Albedo may know the answer, but asking him right away would be like asking the teacher. It would render our search for the truth meaningless.
Could it be the windbloom?
Oh, now that you mention it, that's definitely a possibility. The windbloom doesn't refer to a specific flower. Everyone defines what it means for themselves. In which case, the windbloom doesn't exist in reality. I've made a note. Okay.
Hey, Paimon was actually useful this time. Guess we have that sweet madame.
I'll need some time to prepare.
Sure thing. In the meantime,
I originally wanted to leave it as a surprise for her. And I also didn't want to get... But you're right, Paimon. I'll need to be careful how I word... All right.
If you're looking to pay down your credit card debt without paying...
Amusement and theme park rides are often divisive. What is beloved by one fan might be despised by another. There are endless debates on whether any given ride is good or bad, thrilling or uncomfortable, fun or boring. But every now and then, the stars align and a majority opinion emerges, and fans, critics, and casual guests alike all come together in their shared love or hatred of an attraction. And in Six Flags' case, there is no poster in recent history that has been so widely reviewed as Magic Mountain's Green Lantern First Flight. On May 29, 1971, Magic Mountain opened its gates. The park, located in Valencia, a neighborhood of Santa Clarita, California, opened with 38 listed attractions. Of those, 3 were created by Intamin, a Swiss-based ride designer and manufacturer that had opened just a few years prior. Another designer and manufacturer, the California-based Aero Development, famous for its contributions to Disneyland, would provide 4 rides to Magic Mountain, including the park's signature coaster, Gold Rusher. This, combined with the Bradley & Kay Little Dipper Kiddie Coaster, meant that the park would only operate 2 coasters in its first year. But this would soon change. Over the next 3 decades, the park would gain an additional 15 coasters, lose 3 of them, for a grand total of 13 by 2000. This put Magic Mountain, which had since been bought by Six Flags and renamed to Six Flags Magic Mountain, in striking distance of Cedar Point. Amusement parks thrive on records. It is almost a requirement for parks to have at least one ride that can boast being the tallest, fastest, longest, or first of its type. But the record for the most coasters in a single park is an especially coveted title. Six Flags Magic Mountain announced in late 2000 their intention to add 2 additional coasters, bringing Magic Mountain's total to 15 and beating out Cedar Point by 1. One of the rides would be a record-breaking Vekoma boomerang named Deja Vu, and the other would be a coaster unlike anything on Earth. Aero, which had become Aero Hus and then Aerodynamics, now had 3 coasters operating at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and they were partnering with the park to create a one-of-a-kind coaster. Using a design patented in the mid-90s by John F. Mayers, an attorney that apparently just patents coaster designs in his free time, Aero and Six Flags Magic Mountain set out to build the first ever 4th dimension roller coaster. A 4th dimension coaster is characterized by the addition of a horizontal axis, in which the cars can turn and spin guests perpendicular to the track. This can create additional inversions, or even keep guests upright as the vehicle inverts. Aero's coaster, designed by engineer Alan Schilke, used 4 rails rather than the standard 2. 2 rails would keep the train on the tracks, and the other 2 would use a rack and pinion gear to control the spin of the seats. So while the coaster would appear to spin freely, the rotation would be controlled and the same for every guest as the train made its way along the track. The coaster was an innovative concept from Aero, who had lost their heyday decades prior. In the summer of 2000, but this would not be the case. Design issues and miscalculated construction costs would delay the build months, with previews taking place in December and the ride finally opening on January 12, 2002. The ride would put Six Flags Magic Mountain at 15 coasters, 1 more than Cedar Point, awarding Magic Mountain the coveted title. However, the ride's debut was not the celebration that it should have been for Aero or Magic Mountain. Aero lost millions on the coaster. The unique design was supposed to put them back on the map, but it instead forced them into bankruptcy. On top of this, Six Flags' frustration over the delays and mechanical issues led them to sue Aero, which was the final nail in the coffin for the company.
There have been many poorly written applications lately. I guess I'll just have to reject them all.
Which caused delays in opening every day and multiple downtimes. The dispatch rate of the unique design was slow as well, and wait times could be as long as 5 hours. The reception of the ride itself was generally positive, ignoring these inconveniences, but it was clear that the ride was not functioning correctly. In early June of 2002, after only 6 months of operation, Magic Mountain closed X for repairs. In the meantime, Cedar Point was able to win back the title of most coasters operating in a single park, with their addition of Wicked Twister. This would be brief, as X would be up and running again in August, resulting in a tie between the 2 parks. Aero and its assets would be sold to the Utah-based manufacturer S&S, which created S&S Aero to continue the company's legacy. However, S&S seemed to be only interested in the 4th dimension coaster, and using X's design, S&S Aero would build the world's second 4th dimension coaster, named Ejinaika, at Fujiku Highland in Japan. This coaster had a few design differences that fixed many of the issues of X, which was still struggling at Magic Mountain. After years of issues, delays, downtimes, and even periods of closure for maintenance, Six Flags bit the bullet and revamped the ride. In December of 2007, X closed for renovation,
Here you are.
opening back up on May 24, 2008, as X2 or X Squared. A new color scheme, new effects, new trains, and critically, a new loading system was implemented. X2 operated more efficiently and was better received by guests. Despite all of the issues with the initial fourth dimension coaster, the promise of the concept did not go unnoticed.
Book learning alone is not enough to cultivate intelligence. All those scholars in the academia are prime examples.
In 2007, 2 Zaxpins were created. Kiernu at Linnanmäki in Finland, and Inferno at Terra Mítica in Spain. Despite being fourth dimension coasters, giving riders the ability to flip on a horizontal axis, there were significant differences between Intamin and Arrow's design. First, the Zaxpin's track is laid out vertically, resulting in a very small footprint and compact design. Second, while X2 had 7 cars to a train, with 2 guests on either side of a car, and all 28 guests facing the same direction, the Zaxpin had a single vehicle, with 4 guests on either side, 2 facing one way, 2 facing the other. This resulted in difference number 3. The axis of the rotation was not centered to the riders, rather it was centered to the car. And finally, and most importantly, the Zaxpin models were free spinning. While Arrow's designed predetermined rotations, Intamin's varied depending on weight distribution. The first 2 Zaxpins were rather short in length. In 2009, a slightly larger Zaxpin from Ronalund in Sweden, named Insane, would debut. 2 years after that, Intamin would create a 4th Zaxpin, identical in layout to Insane. This would be the first Zaxpin to debut in North America, and it will be located at none other than Six Flags Magic Mountain. On October 20th, 2010, Six Flags Magic Mountain announced the addition of 2 new coasters, a relocated kiddie coaster from Six Flags New Orleans, and a new Zaxpin themed to the Green Lantern titled Green Lantern First Flight. Six Flags, which used to be owned by Time Warner until 1998, still had a close relationship with the Warner Brothers movie studio, holding the long-term licensing rights to many of their classic characters and DC heroes. The new ride would take this synergy one step further, as the new Zaxpin was set to debut at the same time of the Green Lantern film starring Ryan Reynolds, which was scheduled to open June 15, 2011. This was somewhat appropriate, as both would be received similarly.
One with the farce!
Green Lantern First Flight would be located in the westernmost section of the park, which at the time was named the Gotham City Backflight. It would be renamed to DC Universe to accommodate Green Lantern's mission. The ride would take over a small section of land that at the time held trees, lunch tables, and a Gotham City statue. Construction began in early 2011 and continued into the early summer. However, the ride would miss its opening date, being delayed 2 weeks past the release premiere. Testing began in June, and there were a few kinks to work out. In reality, this was probably just caused by someone not tightening the lid on the water test dummies. But never ignore an omen. The ride had the same specs as Insane. It was 107 feet tall and reached speeds of 35 miles an hour. It was celebrated as the first ever completely vertical pattern zigzag roller coaster featuring 360-degree spinning seats in North America. What took them so long? Most importantly, for marketing, it was a record-breaking coaster. Technically, the coaster itself broke no records. As aforementioned, it was a clone of Insane. However, the existence of the coaster broke arguably the most important record, which is, of course, the most coasters in a park. Green Lantern First Flight would be the park's 18th coaster, beating Cedar Point's 17th.
Now, with the most coasters on the planet, go big. Go Six Flags Magic Mountain.
This was just in time for Magic Mountain's 40th anniversary, and the park touted that they now had the most comprehensive collection of thrilling coasters anywhere in the world. A media event was held for the ride on June 30th, 2011. The grand opening ceremony was star-studded. Aquaman was there, Wonder Woman was there, and of course the Green Lantern himself was there, in brightest day, in blackest night, in spandex that hide nothing from sight.
CC's Dance Studio is grooving. CC's State Farm Agent is a small business owner too, so he helps CC choose personalized policies that fit her budget. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Talk to an agent today.
The following day, the ride was open to the public. Guests would approach the ride, viewing the coaster, a large Green Lantern power battery, and a large Green Lantern illustration. They would pass under a sign for Ferris Aircraft, where courage takes flight, the fictional aircraft company where Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern himself, was a test pilot. They would pass by a model of a plane and more information on Ferris Aircraft. As guests entered the Q building, they would be met with Abin Sur's wrecked starship. The next room would feature a Green Lantern power battery and a pre-show video of animated Green Lantern illustrations. Next, they would be greeted by a line featuring the Green Lantern Oath. The line would then be split so that guests could board on both sides of the track. Guests would be seated 8 to a vehicle, 4 in each car, with 2 passengers facing forward and the other 2 facing back. The ride began and the spin was unlocked, giving riders their first preview of what would come. They would lock in position as guests began their ascent, resulting in guests climbing the lift hill at a number of angles depending on weight distribution. Guests would then brave the 107-foot or 33-meter lift hill before beginning their zigzag descent along the 828-foot or 252-meter track. The most intense section was the final element, which moves guests up and over a steep curve before locking the cars upright and returning guests to the boarding area. Guests exited the ride on the backside of the Q building. The entire experience was about 60 seconds. Reviews of Green Lantern First Flight were generally positive out of the gate, and fans and critics praised the coaster as an intense and thrilling addition to Magic Mountain, compacting some of the unique experiences of X2 into a small footprint. Some critics were underwhelmed, calling it a glorified flat ride, but overall, reviews were good. The ride had a maximum capacity of around 800 people an hour, but Magic Mountain almost always ran the attraction with fewer than the maximum amount of vehicles, resulting in the capacity being closer to 500 an hour. Guest demand for the small coaster was not as overwhelming as the larger attractions, but it seemed the Green Lantern First Flight was a solid, thrilling addition to Magic Mountain. However, guests' opinions were about to do a 180. As it turns out, Zack spins are much more about the spin than the Zack. It was reported that the maximum amount of 363 rotations the free spinning cars on Green Lantern First Flight could accomplish was 3, with the minimum being 0. But many reported in the early months accomplishing 4, 5, or even 6 spins. The amount of rotations depended on the weight distribution of the car, which reportedly is how much the cars were allowed to spin. The latter rumors reported that there was a friction mechanism that the park or ride operators could control, so while the cars would still be free spinning and capable of 360-degree rotations, the amount of force necessary to make a full rotation could be much greater depending on the setting. But this has not been confirmed. Weight distribution, on the other hand, definitely plays a huge role. Supposedly, ride operators in European parks where the other 3 Zack Spin coasters resided make an effort to maximize the number of rotations by purposefully picking heavier riders and pairing them with lighter ones. Of course, Six Flags would not make this same effort, resulting in varying ride experiences. Fewer rotations leading to a less thrilling ride was not even the real problem. The biggest issue was the experience that fewer rotations could cause. Not only is going upside down fun, but on the Zack Spin's intense zigzag descent, it is often necessary to avoid whiplash. Cars that are inverting with the curves of the track have the force of each sharp turn distributed more comfortably. But if the car remains upright the whole time, riders are likely to push, hold, raise, and drop, banging around in their restraints, defeating the enjoyment and purpose of the ride. Plus, as previously mentioned, Zack Spins placed guests off the horizontal axis in which they spin, exacerbating the whiplash effect, as each guest is essentially catching up with the movement of the ride. The restraints were also less than comfortable, with many guests complaining of pain in the shoulders and in some cases, hits below the belt. To put it delicately, it was a pelvic nightmare. This tainted the ride for many guests, but the complaints were minimal during the ride's opening months. It wasn't until early 2012 that the ride would develop its reputation among coaster fans and regular guests as one of, if not the worst Six Flags coaster in operation. Through late 2011 and early 2012, the ride experienced a few breakdowns, leaving riders either facing the sky or upside down for an extended period of time. This was either a prevalent issue or something Six Flags wanted to avoid entirely, as an adjustment was made to the ride's design to prevent this from happening. The vehicles, which prominently displayed fins that appeared in the formation of a throwing star, were given additional metal, filling in the gaps, resulting in a solid structure. Reportedly, this weighed the vehicles down and significantly reduced the amount of possible rotations. And after this change, riders reported a much worse and much more painful experience. Some called the ride weird, fitting considering that others began reporting that this is what the ride did to them. This is not merely to engage in the immature humor of the classic low blow. The only ball busting going on here was that of the ride. The reports of crotch botches plagued the ride's reputation. The ride was advertised as an attraction capable of, quote, squeezing a lifetime of action into 90 seconds. But many riders claimed after the change that it only squeezed one's ability to make a life out of them in 90 seconds. The ride's bad reputation would only grow throughout the years, and a palpable hatred was brewed. In July of 2014, Green Lantern's first flight and all of the intimate decks were closed out of commission after an 18-year-old man died after falling out of the Inferno Zaxxon in Spain. It was soon revealed that the park had modified the attraction's restraint without the knowledge of Intamin, and the other Zaxxons were reopened. The following year, a new fourth dimension free-spinning coaster would open at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, named Batman the Ride. But this would not be developed by Intamin, rather SNS Aero, which had since been acquired by Sansei Technologies. The company had built one additional fourth-dimensional coaster in X2 style at China Dinosaurs Park, named Dino Conda, but this would be the last of its kind that SNS Sansei would develop. Batman the Ride was similar to a Zaxxon, but different in a few key ways that solved many of the problems that Intamin's design had. First, riders were separated into cars of 2 rather than 4, and the axis was centered on the seats, more specifically the riders' stomachs, resulting in a more comfortable experience and a somersaulting effect. Second, the cars use a magnet and fin mechanism that allowed for force spins in key areas, while allowing free spinning during the rest of the ride. This concept, again designed by Alan Schilke, was a huge success, and a total of 9 SNS free spins have been installed throughout the world. To compete, Intamin announced a new generation of their free spin model that shared more than a few similarities to SNS's version, although so far, none have been installed. As fourth dimension coasters spread throughout the world, Green Lantern First Flight continued to disappoint. The amount of negative reviews for the attraction cannot be overstated. It was truly despised by many, while there was a minority of people that enjoyed the attraction and thought everyone else was not tough enough for it. Many more Magic Mountain visitors actively avoided the ride. And then suddenly, in July of 2017, Magic Mountain closed the coaster, giving no explanation as to why. Rumors circulated that a woman had hurt her back on the ride and was suing the park, but nothing official ever surfaced. In early 2018, trim brakes were installed, leading many to believe that the ride was just being modified for reopening. However, this was not the case. The ride remained closed for the rest of the year. In early 2019, Magic Mountain guests noticed that the ride was being tested. However, this time the rumor was not that the ride would reopen. Rather, the coaster was being tested before it was to be sold or moved. This most likely was the case, as it was soon revealed that Le Ron, a Six Flags park in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, was to receive the ride, which would be renamed Repair. Six Flags Magic Mountain's official reasoning for removing the coaster was to make way for new development. No progress has begun on the area, and the queue still remains intact. The coaster was dismantled in late 2019 and transported to Le Ron, where it was to open in 2020, but the COVID-19 outbreak has indefinitely delayed the ride's opening. Green Lantern First Flight's replacement was rumored to be an RMC Raptor single-rail coaster. Plans were filed with LA County, but the park's closure, also due to COVID-19, will postpone and potentially cancel these plans. Luckily, the removal of Green Lantern First Flight would not affect Six Flags Magic Mountain's title of the most coasters in the city park. More coasters have been added since Green Lantern First Flight's debut, and Magic Mountain now has a 2-coaster lead over Cedar Point, with Magic Mountain at 19 and Cedar Point at 17. Although many fans would argue quality over quantity. Green Lantern First Flight was about as universally hated as a coaster could get. It was not without its fans, but the majority of guests seemed to agree that it was not worth the whiplash. Most disappointingly, the ride was received well before the modifications. It is possible that the coaster could have lived on with a much different reputation if Six Flags had not made the change. It is not often that the removal of a ride of any kind is cheered, but if there's a silver lining to be had, unsuspecting guests will no longer be subjected to the pain and whiplash caused by Green Lantern, so long as they don't watch the movie.
Who says you can't go for gold without going broke? Get the brands you want, the prices you want, whenever you want. Subaru, where you can always afford to be you to the max.
Outside, inside, we don't stop. Global, worldwide, we don't stop. From the bottom to the top, we don't stop. From the birds to the block, we don't stop.
March 19, 2015, it was announced that Joel Manby would become the new CEO of SeaWorld Entertainment. Manby was previously the CEO of Hershey Enterprises, the largest family-owned amusement park company in the United States. The charismatic Manby had a proven track record in the theme park industry, and was even somewhat of a public figure after appearing on the CBS reality show Undercover Boss. Manby faced a great challenge when he took the helm at SeaWorld. The corporation's portfolio consisted of 6 parks: Busch Gardens Williamsburg, Busch Gardens Tampa, Sesame Place in Pennsylvania, and 3 SeaWorld branded amusement parks. The original, SeaWorld San Diego, which opened in 1964, SeaWorld Orlando, which opened in 1973, and SeaWorld San Antonio, which opened in 1988. It was no secret why the position of CEO was vacant, as for the past 2 years, SeaWorld had been in crisis mode. In 2013, the documentary Blackfish premiered. The film was a scathing look at the treatment of captive orcas, specifically those held and bred at SeaWorld amusement parks. By the end of 2013, the documentary was airing regularly on CNN, and activists, government officials, and the general public as a whole were putting overwhelming pressure on SeaWorld to end their signature orca program. Manby assumed the position of CEO at the height of this crisis. Up to this point, SeaWorld's main response to the outcry had been to attack the documentary, the filmmakers, and the interviewees. But this only made matters worse. So the company pivoted to improving the living conditions of its orcas. In August of 2014, SeaWorld had announced an initiative titled the Blue World Project, that if approved would almost double the size of the orca tanks at SeaWorld San Diego, and subsequently in San Antonio and Orlando. When Manby joined the company, this project was still awaiting approval by the California Coastal Commission, which had jurisdiction over construction projects in the California Coastal Zone, which included SeaWorld San Diego, which sits in San Diego's Mission Bay. Just over 6 months after Manby joined SeaWorld, the Commission approved the Blue World Project, but only on the condition that SeaWorld stop breeding and transferring orcas, effectively forcing them to end their orca program entirely once the park's current orcas passed. SeaWorld planned to sue the Coastal Commission to have the conditions removed, but Manby was already taking SeaWorld in a new direction. The month after the Commission's conditional approval, Manby held a conference call with investors in which he outlined a new vision for the company. Manby's plan was to shift focus away from animal shows and put resources into more traditional amusement park attractions with a nautical theme. In the call, Manby announced 3 new attractions, all themed after a single television show named Sea Rescue. Sea Rescue was a documentary series that followed a group of veterinarians and experts attempting to rescue and rehabilitate marine life. The first attraction based off of the show was a unique roller coaster named SeaWorld Rescue the Ride, which would be constructed for SeaWorld San Antonio. Another was tentatively titled SeaWorld Rescue, and concept art depicted guests boarding a rescue truck and receiving unique views of an aquarium. This attraction was earmarked for SeaWorld Orlando. Finally, the third attraction would be a submarine ride named Ocean Explorer, to be built at SeaWorld San Diego. The Sea Rescue rides were multi-million-dollar attractions, and in order to pay for them, Manby explained that he was taking money away from the Blue World Project. 4 months later, in March of 2016, Manby made the decision to end SeaWorld's orca breeding program. The following month, SeaWorld announced that the Blue World Project had officially been canceled, and as Manby had outlined, the money was instead invested in new attractions for SeaWorld's 3 parks. While the Sea Rescue truck ride for Orlando would be scrapped, SeaWorld San Antonio would receive its Sea Rescue attraction, a double-launch coaster now titled Wavebreaker, the Rescue Coaster. SeaWorld San Diego would also receive its submarine ride, but the company was now promising much more. In February of 2016, SeaWorld announced that a new 3-acre section, or a new realm as it was officially called, would be added to SeaWorld San Diego, named Ocean Explorer. The children's area would feature aquariums, rides, and digital technologies, all focused on exploration and adventure, with a theme of ocean conservation. On top of some small flat-top rides, the area would feature a flagship attraction, named Submarine Quest. This was the realization of the attraction that Manby had announced months earlier in his conference call. The press release for the ride explained that, quote, guests would be adventurers on a global expedition of scientific exploration, traveling aboard submarines to see ocean explorers' remarkable undersea animals. Concept art of the area showed some of the marine life children would be able to interact with and torment incessantly with new creative glass placement. This concept art was either hastily made or sloppily made, or both, with some really poor compositing, as seen by the piece of concept art for Submarine Quest. While these seem to just be stock photos quickly placed inside a rendering of the submarine, the inclusion of this kid is perfect foreshadowing. Construction began in the summer of 2016, and the Realm was scheduled to open in late spring of 2017. Ocean Explorer would be built just to the right of the park's entrance, on a relatively empty parcel next to one of the park's cafes. A flag display and a small animal viewing area would be removed to make way for the new Realm. Concept art for the land was circulated as construction began, and it appeared that the area's signature attraction, despite the name Submarine Quest, would actually be an elevated dark ride with outdoor sections, similar to Disney's People Mover attraction and the high-in-the-sky Seuss trolley train ride at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure. Both of these attractions were gentle trips around their respective lands, providing guests a relaxing outdoor ride with some short dark ride portions. With Submarine Quest, it was assumed that these dark ride portions would be more elaborate, providing guests with special views of the new aquarium during their adventure. In a statement, SeaWorld assured the public that Submarine Quest would not be a shoot-'em-up style dark ride, even though no one considered that this was a possibility. Instead, the press release explained that by, quote, using digital touchscreens mounted in the ride vehicles, riders will play games and score points as they spot ocean creatures during the indoor and outdoor journey. The company launched a significant media campaign to coincide with the release of the new Realm. SeaWorld San Diego published a video series on YouTube titled Meet the Deep, in which hosts Mike and Jenna chronicled the area and specifically Submarine Quest development and construction. The Meet the Deep series is quite possibly the most in-depth documentation of a ride's construction by a theme park. The web series explores almost every aspect of construction. In the third episode, Mike and Jenna introduced Brian Morrow, Vice President of Theme Park Experience Design. Brian shows off the model ride vehicle for Submarine Quest and explains the interactive elements that were being installed in the ride, noting the touchscreen game that would be the attraction's signature feature. Days after this Meet the Deep episode was published, the final ride vehicle model was revealed at the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions Expo in 2016, and it was revealed in epic fashion.
My advice in this one very specific case is to definitely put all your Reese's eggs in one basket. And that your basket be enormous. Oh, and that your basket have wheels so you can roll them around from place to place.
Are we still on for 3? When your team needs more space to work and eat, Carl, is that hurtful?
No, try.
It matters where you stay. Fish tacos? Carl. Hilton for the stay.
A trailer was also released during the expo with a new opening date of summer 2017.
Punch in your coordinates. Set a course for discovery. Dive to Ocean Explorer. A whole new realm at SeaWorld.
In January of 2017, a Meet the Deep episode was published in which Brian gave a tour of Chance Rides in Wichita, Kansas, which was the manufacturer for the attraction. They gave the first glimpse of the full-scale sub still in production, complete with lighting and the touchscreen game. The next episode featured Mike and Jenna actually playing this game. It was explained that the in-ride game would feature difficulty resistance, so that it was challenging for players of all ages. It was also revealed that there would be different levels of awards depending on how well the riders played. Also during this time, SeaWorld announced that a new roller coaster named Electric Eel would debut at SeaWorld San Diego in 2018. This coaster would be part of a Phase 2 expansion to the Ocean Explorer realm. Throughout the spring of 2017, as construction crews were putting the finishing touches on the new land, Meet the Deep walked to the site multiple times. In April, SeaWorld held a ceremony to unveil the final submarine to park guests. The submarine remained on display as construction neared completion. Ocean Explorer and Submarine Quest had an impressive turnaround time. Despite being delayed from spring to summer of 2017, the new land was still set to debut just 16 months after being announced. No one seemed more excited for the land to open than those internally at SeaWorld. Executives and the ride's designers hoped that enthusiasm would spread to guests. Tempting fate, SeaWorld San Diego president John Riley said, quote, "Our guest response to new attractions has always been tremendously positive." On June 1st, 2017, Ocean Explorer held its grand opening ceremony. SeaWorld pulled out all of the stops for the event. There were ribbon wavers, confetti, flares, the eel from a discontinued ice show at Beach Gardens Tampa, and they even got a bubble guy. With the realm now open, dozens of guests who had waited minutes for the land's opening casually walked inside the new world of exploration, discovery, and conservation, by apparently immediately trampling the plants due to lack of fencing. Ocean Explorer featured 4 new kiddie rides: Sea Dragon Drop, the Octorock, Aqua Scout, and the most well-received, Tentacle Twirl. The aquariums throughout Ocean Explorer were quite small, but they did feature the unique viewing angles as promised. There was also an interactive attraction, the Skill Training Pod, as well as the Explorer's Cafe, whose signage choices were a bit confusing as everything else in the land is designed for small children, except for the craft beer apparently. The signature attraction was of course Submarine Quest. The ride vehicles could be seen as guests entered the land, making their way around the ride track. After hearing a year's worth of press describing the ride as an immersive and interactive experience, many guests were excited and curious about what the ride had in store. Guests entered the attraction through the outdoor queue, with television screens featuring a host named Sub-Commander Sparks, giving the ride safety spiel, and introducing his companion, Link, the ride's star and the land's mascot.
That's Link, the remotely operated vehicle of exploration and research, or supercomputer of the sea.
Just Link will do.
A figure of Link could also be found at the realm's entrance. After entering the loading station, guests passed by a few simple art pieces and immediately boarded their subs. There were 7 subs, each with a special name, with no clear direction or pattern. 2 of them are named after parts of a ship, axle and rudder. One of them is a fish with a first name, Macy Mackerel, and another is just a first name with a nautical adjective, Bubbly Bailey. As guests sat in their ride vehicle, Sub-Commander Sparks returned to instruct riders to pull down on their lap bar, before Link joined him for the voyage. Sub-Commander Sparks told riders to tap the screen in order to release the airlock, and guests began their expedition into the majesty of the deep, blue, blinding sunlight. After passing by trees and concrete, guests entered the first show scene of Submarine Quest, which was that of a deep-sea coral reef. This scene is supposed to be in the Twilight Zone, a zone that is so deep below the surface that sunlight cannot reach it. Of course, the ride represents this in broad daylight with 2 screens that briefly display an octopus.
That octopus was totally camouflaged.
After the Twilight Zone was the Sunlight Zone, where guests saw eels. Click faster! Sub-Commander Sparks detects a large animal ahead, and guests begin a pursuit. Riders are able to see Link in front of them. This static figure featured a digital face that never quite synced up with the audio from the ride vehicle. The 2 decide to send out the Beacon Buddies on a mission.
Wow, look at this genuinely amazing experience that totally cannot be replicated.
The Beacon Buddies find huge jellyfish and something even bigger ahead. As guests escape to the old sea pod to take a look, riders are instructed to open another hatch, despite the hatch always opening before the instruction audio is finished. The sub then enters a sea pod full of screens that display a giant CGI squid. After a brief stop in the sea pod, riders open the escape hatch and re-enter the ocean, just as the squid breaks the glass on the sea pod and releases ink. As guests exit the pod, water sprays at riders. The water effect was incredibly inconsistent, and it is not clear whether the water was triggered by a game mechanism and only appeared sometimes, or if it was simply an unreliable effect. It was shot from the left of the ride vehicles, and instead of giving all of the riders a light mist, it just hosed the rider in the front left seat. After this scene, the subs take a final turn back into the loading station. During this short segment, guests found out what type of explorer they were. There were 3 options: Junior Explorer, Super Explorer, and Master Explorer, even though in playtesting Mike scored Marine Veterinarian, which did not seem to be an option that made it into the final game. Guests then re-entered the loading station and exited their vehicles. Incredibly, Submarine Quest was not a hit with guests, and this is putting it lightly. In general, guests were shocked to find out that Submarine Quest was neither sub nor marine, as it took place 15 feet above the ground in the open air. The outdoor show scenes were sparse, and the one dark ride scene was a disappointment. The ride did look better at night, as there was at least a chance of the illusion of being in the deep ocean, but sunset in the summer in San Diego is around 8 p.m., and most nights, SeaWorld closed at 9. The creative decisions made for the ride were quite confusing. Many guests speculated that the ride had its budget cut late in development, which could be possible, but concept art for the land did display the ride almost exactly as it was built. Supposedly, the initial plans called for the ride track to be longer and mostly enclosed in a tube. However, it seemed that a significant portion of the budget was put into research and development for the unique ride vehicle rather than putting that money towards show scenes. The designers clearly took a lot of pride in their work, and it seems as though this part of the experience was built more or less from the ground up, which is theoretically impressive. However, in practice, all that is noticeable is the inherent and consistent flaws in the mechanics of the game, most obvious in the confusion during the Beacon Buddies section, which was present all the way back during playtesting.
Tap the screen to deploy the Beacon Buddies.
Other criticisms included the screens being difficult to see in the sunlight and that the voice of Link was obnoxious. To add insult to injury, the entire realm had a branding problem, as seemingly everyone believed that Ocean Explorer was the name of the ride and not the name of the realm.
What the heck is this Ocean Explorer ride car?
So, Ocean Explorer is actually the name of the whole...
Make it easy. With Reeeeeeeeeeeeee AC 500 at home, you are always...
On June 3rd, 2 days after the ride's debut, San Diego Union Tribune released a scathing review of the ride, saying, quote, "The biggest disappointment is the heavily promoted submarine quest. SeaWorld is touting it as a high-tech trip through the ocean ecosystem, but it turns out to be a slow-moving track ride past a few animated animals on video screens." Brady McDonald of the Orlando Sentinel said, quote, "The new land centerpiece ride is basically a slow-moving transportation system that doesn't and encourages you to explore your surroundings." Said, quote, "That I'm not satisfied. We did not market February 28, 2018, SeaWorld CEO Joel Andrews resigned from his position at the company after less than 3 years as the chief executive. Following its Connecticut Steep quarterly lawsuit, he resigned as the main lead of the company. But multiple publications quickly mentioned the recent failure of the submarine quest attraction. While clearly not the main reason for his departure, the relic's failure could have been a contributing factor. Just 4 days later, it's announced that Chief Creative Officer Anthony Garza and Vice President Brian were resigning from their roles as well. Many online exhibitors related to the resignation
failure. It feels just like